He did it.
Congratulations.
He did it without my help.
That's atypical. Usually it's the mother who
true.
basically gets the...
I read once somebody say that they were really glad that their mom got their Eagle Scout for them.
Yeah.
He can't say that.
Good.
I was here to say,
Sort of books.
yeah,
Okay. Right on.
just
All
because
right, you got to be able to delegate, but...
I just wanted to see if there were any I wanted to read. So. But yeah, he did it all on his own. I was here to say good for you, but I didn't
Good job.
say not a typical mom, not a typical Mormon mom.
All right.
Am I?
Yeah. Right on. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Cool. We're going to make brownies for you.
Yes, since you wouldn't do it, we'll make brownies and film it so people know that I make brownies in this house.
Exactly. Just add eggs, oil, and water.
Let's see if we have it.
So we just went through your whole story.
Yeah, right.
All right.
No, not quite.
Whoa.
Sorry.
That's great.
Not quite the whole story.
So what are we missing?
Well, I'm 45 now, and you got to 27.
Wow.
There you go.
Really? That was... You
I
got a
was
divorce at
27 when I had cancer,
Okay.
but I didn't divorce until 2000.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, there's lots of story, but I don't know how much is really going to be interesting.
Well, all of it depends on how you tell it. Another way to approach it is just with the basic question of the film. The film, we're trying to portray to a general audience that's not Mormon, and it's not gay, what it's really like to be gay or homosexual and Mormon today.
Well,
So the answer obviously takes on lots of different faces, lots of different shapes and stories, and
well, I used to I used to try to not have negative experiences. Even though I had them, I would just kind of brush over them.
You mean with the church?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would just pretend they didn't happen or just try to be understanding about them. But I had negative experiences from the time I was 17 on.
Wow.
The first person I told that I even had the feelings was a seminary teacher, and I just wanted to know if I was normal, and she assured me I was.
Because lots of women feel this with...
That's what she said.
Okay.
But then I found out through a phone call to my mother from a friend's mother, who happened to be the mother-in-law of a seminary teacher, that I had come out as gay, and that we needed to have a discussion on how I was going to be hanging around with these other kids.
Oh, gosh.
So we had this big old meeting with my parents and the other parents. Not the seminary teacher, she was gone, but we knew that's where the information came from. And it was pretty traumatic because my mom at the time was very homophobic.
What state is this in?
South Dakota.
Okay. So pretty rural.
Yeah. So my mom was pretty homophobic. She didn't want me listening to Olivia Newton-John, because she was afraid that she was gay and just things like that. She was very homophobic. But later on she got better. But at this point she was pretty horrified that I might be having these feelings. So that was not good. And I was told not to hang around with those girls anymore. And
Just girls in general?
There were just 2 girls in the ward.
Okay.
So
Wow.
there weren't very many.
So you couldn't hang out with them?
Or I couldn't hang out with them.
Because you might
Well,
infect them?
there were 2 girls that hung out with me in the ward. There were 2 other girls who
Okay.
wouldn't have anything to do with me. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so yeah, I just couldn't hang around with those 2 anymore.
Because you had been before.
Right.
You were friends.
We were friends. We did things all the time.
And so now that's sort of in
Yeah.
suspect. And were they accusing the girls too, or just they
Just
didn't want you to
me.
contaminate them?
Yeah, they didn't like my influence on them.
Wow.
So that wasn't very good. And then the next year I went to Rick's College and, BYU, Idaho now, but it was Rick's at the time, because I'm old, and you know how everybody sits around and talks about their biggest sin,
Right. Yeah.
I hadn't sworn or even drank a Mountain Dew by then, and so the worst thing I could come up with was that I wanted to kiss my friend who was a girl. And so that made it to the dean,
Yeah, it's like, they're like, oh, I said shit once. And
I
then
know.
they're like, I want to kiss the girl. Crickets in the room.
Yeah. So I made it to the dean, and I just got a letter or a phone call, I don't remember which, saying I had an appointment with the dean at Ricks College. So
Wow.
I went there and I said, I'm checking in with this dean. And they said she's in this room. So I went to that room, and there were all my roommates sitting in a circle with her, and one chair for me. And I sat down, and she said that everyone was going to take their turn and say how my revelation made them feel.
Gosh.
So that was pretty traumatic. And then I had to have counseling.
Did they ask you how this group intervention setting made you feel?
No, of course not. So then I had to go to counseling, and that was dependent. My staying in school was dependent on going to this counseling.
Right.
And I had to meet with the dean regularly. And anyway, I finally quit. Quit Ricks College. So I'm a Ricks College dropout. Thanks. For lots of reasons. They called my mom and said that I was drinking when I wasn't, and they just really had me pegged for loser, I guess, by then. Probably because of my revelation. But
Yeah.
so, and then when I went home from the MTC, I was disfellowshipped, which, I'm not saying that was a bad or negative experience, but it was difficult.
Yeah.
And then I had to, I spent all those years pretending that I was not gay. I thought it was just a phase, and so I didn't have any negative experiences then. But
Were you back in South Dakota?
no. By then after the MTC, I went back to South Dakota.
Okay.
They sent me home there. And then I got married in Illinois, in the Chicago Temple,
Wow.
and we lived in Iowa. That's where all my babies were born.
I didn't know. That baby. Okay.
That baby.
Yeah. I thought you were pointing at Chicago.
Anyway, then the only other negative experiences, you had church members. One lady said to me, I don't know why your husband stays married to you, those kinds of comments.
How'd they even know?
I was never really very closed. I would say that I was attracted to women. I wouldn't announce it in Relief Society or Sacrament, but I would tell visiting teachers or people like that. Especially if they would say mean things about gay people, I'd be like, you have no idea.
Right. Wow. So obviously your husband knew.
Yeah, but not before we got married.
Okay.
Because again, I thought it was a phase.
Right.
So I didn't even tell him I'd been with 2 women before I got married. Until I was pregnant with my daughter. And right after she was born, I told him that I'd been with women, because I thought that was why I was having sexual issues with him. Because I was keeping a secret, keeping a sexual secret.
Okay.
So I thought maybe that would solve all those problems with being intimate with him, and it didn't help at all. But he wasn't surprised. He knew that I probably had those experiences, and he was very supportive. And
based on your guys' interactions and so on.
But then the other negative experiences were after I was divorced. I had a bishop say that just because I had the feelings, I couldn't have a calling or recommend, and he wouldn't release me from probation until I denied that I had the feelings, and I never could. So for the 1.5 years I was in that ward, I was on probation. And then when I moved to another ward, it wasn't on record, so I just went on my merry way and was called as the second counselor in Relief Society, and everything was fine.
Right.
But it was funny, because when I got called into the bishop with my new ward, I thought, great, my old bishop has talked to him. And then when he said, we wonder if you want to be the second counselor in Relief Society, I laughed.
You're so relieved.
I'm like, wow, I thought you were going to put me on probation again. Anyway, I didn't say that really, because that would have been probably awkward.
Right. But when did you start feeling like you could be vocal about it, or,
Well, when I first started, after I had cancer and started realizing that it wasn't just a phase, that's when I started saying to people, I have same-sex attraction, and that I was looking for support because it wasn't available back in '94.
In the Mormon community.
And I lived in Iowa. It's not like I had a big support system there. So that's why I created the email support group of disciples too, because it needed to be created. There was nothing
Cool.
there.
Yeah.
I had contacted Evergreen, and at the time it was run by Mike, who really didn't
Which
have
Mike?
any, Mike Milberger.
Okay.
And he didn't, it was in a office supply store, you know,
yeah,
it wasn't
yeah,
even
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
back in that day. And they didn't really have a lot for women. They sent me Born That Way by Erin Eldridge, who you now know as
Right.
Laurie.
Mm-hmm.
It really just made me angry because I had been doing everything in that book, and
Right. Right.
I had a good husband, and I wasn't feeling
Mhm.
attraction to him, and
Mm-hmm.
I just really had a really difficult time with being alone, and any source of support wasn't helpful at all.
Yeah.
And so I created the support group, and I just put it on. That was back when we had to put it in news groups.
Mm-hmm. Like Yahoo sort of.
Yeah,
Groups.
an
yeah.
AOL news group and all those news
Mm.
groups. So I advertised it on November 17th. And by the end of November, there were 11 people.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, there's like 12 of us out there.
Like what?
I couldn't believe there were 12 Mormons who were gay.
Right. Right. Wow.
And then, of course, it grew exponentially
Right.
after that.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
But it was really just a necessary thing to
Mhm.
have support, to know you're not alone. So
Right on. How long did Disciples 2?
it's still going.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it around, but I wasn't sure what sort of how it's functioning.
Well, it's kind of changed face a little bit.
Mhm.
It used to be just really raw, really, you know, I think it's just like a life. It
Yeah.
has a life of its own.
Mhm.
Now, it's pretty soft. Like, there was a guy on there who recently said that he questioned Elder Packer and Elder Oaks, and he wasn't sure he could sustain them. And he was just railroaded for
Oh.
being honest about that.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know, and so it's just, but it's taken that life all on its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just step in now when people are ornery and say,
Mhm.
okay, let's treat each other kindly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not as real and
Interesting.
raw as it used to be.
Interesting.
So,
Do you think that's like, is that disingenuous on people's parts? You know, like people are trying to be overly self-righteous, or is it? I mean, what's going on? Do you think?
I'm not sure what happened other than a lot of times people, there were certain people who would get on the group and still are on the group who claim to have changed their orientation. There's two.
Mm-hmm.
And it became this is how you do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about having faith and living righteously and playing basketball and doing these things
the gender.
that don't help everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the people who were really seeking help were
Right.
kind of scared away
Mhm.
or scared into silence.
Mm-hmm.
And then those who were being real, there's one guy who's been on there since the first day who would say things about how real he feels, his real experiences in the gym, or with his home teacher when his home teacher hugs him. You know, sometimes he has a reaction to that.
Right.
And people found that very offensive as time went on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so pretty soon the ones that were more vocal just started feeling shut out.
Oh, that's too bad.
It is too bad because it was such an incredible organization at first.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody to be able to say, you know, hey, I had this reaction to my home teacher hugging me, and to be able to talk about that
Yeah.
and talk through.
Yeah.
Where else are you going to talk about it?
Exactly.
With your home
Yeah.
teacher? I don't think so. Your bishop, priesthood meeting. So
Right.
I'm kind of disappointed in the changes that it's made, but people still say that it's been helpful.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So I just kind of let it have its life, and
Right. Way to go.
I don't know.
That's
I just
cool.
step in when people get mean, like they did to this poor kid who questions Elder Packer and Elder Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
Heaven
Mm-hmm.
forbid.
Yeah.
People get so afraid of questioning
Right.
and of wondering, how does this work for me?
And
They
everybody
think
does.
it's apostate.
Right. You have to be able to talk
Right.
about it and understand it.
Right.
You have to.
Parker, will you turn the light on in there? Yeah,
Should I get an egg? Have an egg? Two
we need
eggs?
two.
Can I get an egg?
If you can find it. On the right side, second shelf down.
Alright, so
So
it's
just don't laugh at our empty fridge.
Oh, down here. Oh, please.
Yeah, you're probably starving now that you're fired.
Yeah, right. Starving artist. Not yet. I'll let you
You're not
know.
starving yet?
No.